Using the planets as tools of conscious authorship and, navigating our psyche, our consciousness, we can see that Mars is one of the most important planets for alchemy, astrological alchemy. He's a very important tool, I'll say that. Especially when we're looking at our Aries Libra axis. Mars is the distinction between yes and no, the self versus other, action and passivity, what's necessary and what is unnecessary in your life. Mars is about severing, is about conflict, cutting cords, reprioritization. That's the main thing I would say. Reprioritization. I am a priority in my life. This is a birthright. What's actually draining me? What's insufficient? What's preventing movement and flow of my life force? What actually you're going to run into things in your life that is going to require you to act with decisiveness. If you don't, it's just going to keep coming back and back and back because, I do see that there's a relation between the 6th house and Mars finding joy there and then the 12th house and Saturn finding joy there. Bad fortune leads to bad karma. So if you are not taking action in your life with clarity, I know what works for me and I know what doesn't. Mars actually cuts away prime materia. So with Mars finding joy in the 6th house, if you're not paying attention to your day-to-day and how energy affects you in your day-to-day, it's going to catch up with you in the 12th house. Because Mars, you have to ask yourself, what is draining my energy? What is preventing movement in my life? This is when it's actually functioning correctly, your boundaries of your energy become very, very clear. You can actually make decisions like, no, I don't want this. Going back to that yes or no thing. Even as a kid, when you're younger, you start to have your own needs. I don't want that. I want this. But when it is distorted, it can be, when anger is a very chronic thing in your life, conflict with your identity, things like that. Because Mars is an allocator of energy. Every day you wake up with a infinite amount of energy. You are alive. You have a spark. So Mars is deciding where energy goes, what receives attention from me, what I protect, and what actually gets eliminated from my energetic space. And I truly do believe that Mars protects your heart. Okay, he is the guardian of energetic economy. What's going on in your birth chart. I look at the entire chart itself as your realm of existence. So he is the guardian of that. So if you say yes to one path of existence, you're saying no to 1,000 others. And that's why Mars is also associated with sacrifice. Not really through suffering, but moreover through selection. You can be selective of what happens in your emotional space, especially if you're a woman, your womb space. That's why Lilith is also associated with Mars too. But yeah, Mars is, again, a birthright, but it's the birth of identity. Mars is... It's like, okay, so the 1st house to the 6th house axis, you can't really see that. It's in aversion, but you can't really see what's going on in that 6th house. It's in your peripheral vision. So that's why it's really important to stay present as well, especially in your daily life. Like, especially when you're a kid, that's when you can start saying, no, this is mine. I don't want that. Leave me alone. It creates an identity through differentiation. It's kind of what I was saying about sacrifice through selection. So those moments are actually very sacred. You are a sacred being. You have your own, wants in life. So without them, there is no separation of the self. And that's why I say that that's why they say bad fortune leads to bad karma. With Saturn finding joy in the 12th house, karma is just an action. If you are taking action against yourself, it's going to catch up. Against your own identity, it's going to catch up with you in the 12th house. Isolation from participation in your own life. Because before Mars, there is fusion. And after Mars, there is individuality. That's what that Aries. When I say that Mars, before that, there's fusion, it's Pisces. It's the all. There's no knowing who you are. Especially if we think about it, the 12th house is above the first. You're inside of the womb. When you come out of the womb, you have a skin barrier. Now I can identify with who you are. You can see yourself in the mirror. So that's why I say that before Mars, there is fusion with that Pisces energy. After that, you are an individual person. You have your own boundaries, and you can make your own decisions, and be your own person. So people with a weak Mars in their chart, or having a hard time with prioritizing themselves, especially with that first house to seventh house axis, yes, there is a lack of strength. There's a lack of boundaries, decision making, being assertive in who you are as a person. There's a difficulty defining where you start and where other people begin, where their energy starts and where yours ends. And the thing about Mars and desire, like Venus is asking, like, what do I value? Like, what do I actually want in life? But Mars is asking you, what are you actually willing to pursue and participate in? So you can want many things, you can desire many things, you can value many, many things, but you can only actively pursue a few. So that's why I say priority is very important as well, because you can take action, but not on every fucking thing. Like, you can't do that because it's going to basically tear you apart in different directions, and I guess that's kind of similar to that Libra energy, imbalancing of your energy as well in reality. So it's really hard for you to determine, again, where you start and where you end, because it can get very confusing in that first house to seventh house axis. I know I'm talking about like different areas of where Mars shows up, but this is the energy itself, because Mars does force reality. Believe me, Mars does force reality. There's a lot of dreams that you want to do, but they can't disappear when Mars enters the picture, because Mars is demanding effort from you. That's why Mars can often destroy fantasy, not out of cruelty or anything, but literally out of practicality, like what is important to you at the core. Yes, he is the planet of conflict, but necessary conflict, because it's not inherently destructive, because Mars understands that what a lot of people resist, and that is growth, because growth creates friction. So whenever you set a boundary with someone, whenever you change a fucking habit, whenever you leave a weird relationship, like a relationship that doesn't resonate with you, whenever you start a business, whenever you decide to tell the truth, something is going to resist. But Mars it governs the willingness to tolerate that resistance. A mature Mars does not seek conflict. If you're able to really work with yourself, you are not actually seeking conflict. You're seeking clarity. You actually stop running from necessary conflict. You develop courage, right? Because Mars is not really fearlessness, but it is the movement despite fear. I've been learning a lot about that because my Mars is in the second house, and it's my Mars ruled year. There is a lot of things that I did not know that I was scared of. I have social anxiety. That's nice to know. That's really nice to know, actually, because it definitely gives me the courage to battle that. This is the art of war. And yes, fear does belong to a lot of many different planets, but Mars governs what happens after fear shows itself to you, appears. When I'm oh, okay, can you imagine two people who are equally afraid of something? One person might move, the other one freezes, but the movement itself is Mars. This is basically fighting for yourself, fighting those unconscious patterns, and being able to, again, prioritize what's necessary. So, what actually requires a response from me, what deserves effort from me, what threatens my own integrity, because I am an Aquarius, and what do I need to change? Because a healthy Mars, it actually mobilizes, and then I can relax. And then I can retreat back into peace and comfort. A lot of situations actually really make me, I don't know. It makes me very nervous because I don't know. It's I don't know what's going to happen, but that's the thing. I move despite the fear. So yeah, because if I'm distorted, if my Mars is distorted and I can't really act for myself, I'm I'm immobilized indefinitely. There's like I get irritable. I have chronic tension in my freaking nervous system. I'm hyper vigilant. I have constant urgency to do something. I don't even know what the fuck I need to do. The issue isn't Mars and stuff. It's literally Mars without completion. My nervous system never I just think that there's some things that are unfinished. Not consciously, but just unconsciously, if you know what I mean. So yes, act despite fear. So for me, I needed to make a schedule so like the way that I operated before actually dies off, because I would stay in bed all freaking day if I could, but I can't. I need to identify where I start and the energy ends. I'm a Pisces rising, so when I wake up in the freaking morning, my head is still swimming. I'm still swimming in unconscious things. So I really need to prioritize my existence. That's what I mean, because I deserve to take up space as well. You know what I mean? So it's like I deserve to have make decisions that are beneficial for me, blocking out my schedule that has time for me, and then I can interact with everybody else. I'm not losing myself. I'm prioritizing my energy in certain blocks, So a schedule helps for me, definitely. It removes what no longer serves function in my life, and that's just laying in fucking bed all day and being lost in my thoughts. Like, that's not easy, that's not fun, So I decide what survives in my life.